According to City Attorney David O'Milia, the law right now says that you can only paint on a city street in reasons of safety, and that allowing the BLM mural to stay here in Greenwood would allow anyone to paint on any city street anywhere. Councilor McKee tells me that interpretation of the law could be painted over soon. St. Francis Tulsa Tough welcomes casual riders and competitive racers. Those trained athletes will ride around the course here in Tulsa's Art District on Saturday. One of those operations actually broke out their wallets and spent 7 to 8 times the going rate per acreage here in the county. He says they bought a 20-acre property for $700,000, which equates to $38,500 per acre, when the going rate here in Okmulgee County is just $5,000 per acre. Business owners operating by the book say it's hard enough to try to turn a profit in this market, and having to battle against the black market makes it near impossible. The predators online actually make his job pretty simple most of the time. They message who they believe is a 14-year-old girl, and he says they use what he calls a grooming tactic to ask them actually pretty standard questions like, where do you go to school, and do you have any brothers or sisters, before deciding it's time to steer the conversation in a much different direction. Officer Zerkishan is still recovering at a rehabilitation center, but when he's cleared to return home, he'll check his mail for the first time and find it inside of this brand new white brick custom mailbox that he's always wanted.
What kind of security are you seeing in that area around you?
Well, it is pretty heavily secure. On both ends, we have tape, as you saw, on the south end of Greenwood, and on the north end, we've got a security tent where they are checking every vehicle that comes through. But I will tell you, honestly, there are a lot of people here who really could just walk in from the OSU Tulsa area. Yeah, Karen, as you said, the president arrived here at the Greenwood Cultural Center just before 2 o'clock this afternoon, to hundreds of people lined outside on Greenwood Avenue. As he came here, he spoke to the remaining 3 survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre and a lot of descendants of those victims. Well, Karen, right now, as you said, it's a fluid situation, as there are several crews around Mays County and beyond who are out here trying to get to both of those out-of-state contractors who are still stuck down inside of the dam. Now, a spokesperson with the GRDA tells us that around 6 o'clock this evening, 3 contractors were actually doing some routine core drilling down inside of the dam when there was an explosion. We got a glimpse at body cam video of that 8-minute long police pursuit that led to an on-foot chase that all culminated in this area near 17th and Lenapaw. As you'll see in the video in just a few moments, 17-year-old Farrah Roush was actually laying right here in the grass, surrounded by police officers, and as you'll see, she turns and raises a gun and points it back at police. Now they just taken off and gone back to what was supposed to be the original route, which heads north over on MLK. Let me step aside and show you a bit of what the march is looking like right now. Now, obviously, earlier around 3:30 this afternoon is when the march originally began, and the crowd, which was supposed to be heading in the direction they are now, actually went south on MLK and ended up going around One Oak Field, down Archer and Elgin, and they settled in around there. Just in the past 5 or 10 minutes or so, PGA officials here at the Senior PGA Championship just blew the horns to suspend play, which means all the golfers have been taken off the course. And as if you can see behind me here, everyone who was left out on the course, all the spectators who were here witnessing and watching the play today here in the first round, are making their way off of out of Southern Hills Country Club here today, getting to their vehicles and making sure they can get home safely. From nothing 2 years ago to, oh, quite something now.
We will be $1 billion market. We will have $70 million in tax money coming in.
Chip Paul is the executive director at OK4U Approved. The program works with medical marijuana patients to find safe and effective organic pharmaceutical alternatives. Paul and his wife grew OK4U after writing the bill to make it possible. Nearly 57% of Oklahoma voters approved State Question 788, legalizing marijuana for medicinal purposes in 2018. Thousands across the Sooner State lined up for licenses. 190,000 Oklahomans registered for medical cannabis in year 1. That number is now doubled.
Because honestly, the rate of applications really has not slowed down.
According to Marijuana Policy Project, the slice of Sooner State citizens licensed to buy and use medical marijuana is larger than in any other state. Nearly 8% of Oklahomans hold medical cannabis cards.
The next largest portions are in Maine and California with slightly less than 5%.
That's why our program has taken off. That's why it's flown. That's why it's flourished the way that it has.
The state is making a pretty penny off of medical marijuana sales. The Oklahoma sales tax is 4.5%, plus the 7% excise sales tax laid out in State Question 788. The revenue coming into the state is growing like the plan it's profiting off of. The OMMA reports just over $240,000 in tax revenue in fourth quarter 2018. In 2019, the state reported almost $55 million. The cash crop continues its climb. In 2020, tax totals nearing $128 million.
That money goes to the Department of Health, and they're supposed to use that money per budget to run their department.
Paul tells Two Works for You investigates he wrote that into law in the lens of a $100 million industry. The plant program is proving him wrong so far.
We will 10x that, right, in 2021.
The OMMA says about $25 million of that tax revenue funds the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority. The program's director, Dr. Kelly Williams, tells Two Works for You $30 million in excise tax money was spent on drug education in schools in 2020. An additional $10 million helps fund state drug rehabilitation centers. Paul says it's about time legislators got their hands on that abundance of bud money. But local dispensaries worry greed is growing from all this green.
Right now, it feels like everybody's got their hand in the cookie jar.
Taxes on the patient could soon turn on the provider. State partner track and trace program Metric is starting its system in Oklahoma this month. The company charges a 45-cent fee for tracking tags tied to each plant. Tony Rodriguez and his team at Harvest Health Dispensary in Sand Springs grow around 2,500 plants at a time.
This guy wanted to add a little bit of tax here. This guy wants to add a little bit of tax here. And when you start adding all these entities up, it falls all back to the grower or to the dispensary that has to inevitably pass it back to the consumer.
That's not all the money the state and its partners stand to make from medical cannabis. The state charges $100 for each patient license and $2,500 for every business license. The state is pocketing almost $63 million in total active license fees. An OMMA spokesperson tells me the license money goes to the Department of Health. I'm also told the legislature dipped into the fund last year almost as an emergency cash reserve during coronavirus and shifted it into the state's education spending.
9-year-old Seven Spates used to spend her days of adolescence in the schoolyard at Dove School of Discovery. Back in her room, painting and drawing childhood dreams of becoming a chef or a teacher.
I didn't really feel like something was wrong.
Now her days are spent in a hospital bed. Her only dream is a chance to grow up to live out her dreams.
It's real. I have to remind myself every day almost that this is happening and like this is our reality.
In March of last year, Natalie Logan drove her then 8-year-old daughter to the doctor to scan her kidneys and bladder wall for a severe urinary tract infection.
That's when we found out that her kidneys had gone into failure.
A 7-month pregnant Logan rushed Seven here to St. Francis Hospital, where a doctor had the 8-year-old life-flighted to Oklahoma City to undergo emergency treatment for stage 5 kidney failure.
That's when it all began.
Logan says Seven was immediately started on dialysis to wash toxins out of her system. Total kidney failure came with complications. Logan says her daughter experienced temporary heart failure, pancreatitis, and brain swelling that caused blindness.
To see your child like cry for you and tell you, "Mommy, I can't see you, I can't see you," it's incredibly scary. I didn't know if she was going to regain her sight.
Seven's kidneys were removed in December, and she spent her 9th birthday, Christmas, and New Year's hooked to a hospital bed. Her kidneys quit on her, but Seven isn't giving up.
I usually look back at the pictures when I was in the hospital and just think to myself, like, I really want to do that.
She's not in the clear yet, but Seven was just cleared to receive her kidney transplant. Luckily, the donor is someone she knows pretty well.
Mine is Honey and hers is Biscuit. So the one that I give her is named Biscuit.
The honey to her Biscuit, for 8 years, the mother to an only daughter.
This is my daughter. This is like the love of my life.
Gifting her another chance at life, the chance to see Seven grow up and live her dreams of leading a cooking line or a classroom.